she said so much stuff that I could see where, you'd be a little unnerved. There's no way I could handle this. This is way too much work. It's this. Don't flinch. And what I mean is, like somebody said, I don't know, one of you said before, let's just hold off until we hear what they have to say. It might be better than we think it is. It could be worse. All right? It's possible. All right. So with this one, again, what we added with iteration 8 was we came in here and open it up. Notice it's going to open up in a new window, but you know what all this stuff is already. I'm expecting that by now, and again, it wouldn't be learning, it would be relearning. But I expect that any of you would be able to, I don't care if it's a website that you are working on in HTML or if you're doing an ASP.NET site or something else, that you'd be able to do things like add images. I really don't think that's above anybody in here. You also know that, as an example, if you're not aware of this, most of the time, and I based it off of theirs, so I've got the width and the height in there directly. You don't normally put that in there. I would give this, notice it's got a class. So I would either have a class or I would put, for the image, I would either add a class or I'd add an ID, and I'd put that kind of stuff in there. You shouldn't be, because what I'm doing is I'm taking CSS and I'm putting that CSS in my HTML file. You shouldn't be doing that. All right, that's one thing hopefully you've learned over the last year. All right, is how to separate out concerns or whatever you would call them. All right. I think this was just more of the same, so I'm just going to hold off on that one. One of these, you're going to notice that when I put my mouse over them, that these are going to move. I added some animation in here. Not a lot, and it's not any gee whiz type of thing, but it's in here someplace. Still not showing. Must be the next one. See that? All right. One thing that I've noticed today, and even more so, I'm already seeing this in my granddaughter and in some young kids that my wife, her friends are associated with. I thought to myself, I don't really have that great of an attention span. I think I have a greater attention span than most people in this room. And that's not a cut towards any of you. You just have so many things that I never had available when I was a kid. But when I see these little kids, it scares the hell out of me. They need constant something. They can't just sit there. It is so bad. I watch my daughter's future mother-in-law. All right, so her boyfriend's mom, and she's like, the baby is in a swing, okay, and it does just keep going. Oh, it's not fast enough for her. How the hell do you know? I'm watching it, and that's what I'm thinking to myself. How do you know that? She's, when that happened, she's just turned 2 months. How do you know how a 2-month-old feels? Now, you might disagree with that, and you might say, oh, I knew with mine. Maybe you did. But you know what? I bet you your mom doesn't know.
I was daycare teacher. For me, you just learn the instincts, you learn how they respond.
But the other thing too is, I went out and my wife garage sales. So we went out and bought some stuff that was used. It's still in nice shape, but the swing that we have goes this way. The swing they have goes this way. Well, she came over for the first time to my apartment, and she was in that swing, and they're like, oh, she's been a beast all day. She's not going to sleep. She was out for 3 hours. She had never been in a thing that moved that way. And they were like, we got to buy one of those. I said, that's kind of a dumb thing to say. I think she was content in there because she had never been in that kind of thing before. I think I've said this to you before, but I used to think, I'm not that smart. And I still don't know if I'm that smart, but I think people by and large are getting dumber. Because when I talk to people and they're like, wow, that's really, how did you think of that? And I'm like, well, I'm a human. And it really wasn't that big of a thing. But I never thought of something like that. Well, that's kind of because you're dumb. You don't say that. Honestly, I don't think any of you in here are dumb. None of you. But I think that, because, you're in a field where you have to constantly be thinking. But there's a lot of people, they're just content. They get home. They're like my dad when he used to get home. He would do nothing. He would just become a vegetable. He worked hard all day long. He'd come home, he'd sit there and he'd eat, and then he'd sit down in front of the TV, and a half hour later he'd be asleep. He wouldn't go to bed, and we had one TV, and he'd snore like they say, like a truck driver. So we'd all get to sit there and turn up the TV, you know? But I listen to people today, and it's like I said, short attention spans, don't care, easily distracted, and it's like, wow. It's like my late father-in-law told me, he said, I was born at the right time, and I'm going to die at the right time. That's what he told me, and he died when he was 88, about 5 years ago, and I feel the same way with me. All right. So again, that's some animation. Not hard to put that in, but I want to show you the last one that's in here. You've got all this code. Now, does that mean that you're going to look at it? You know what? If you get time and you have the desire, I hope you do. That said, are you going to look at it? I can't make up that decision for you. All right. Come on. Open. All right. So the last one, I need to grab that. Cut. Put it in here. Cut. You've got all this stuff, like I said. So let me put that in there. I just want to show you the last, this is the final project, all right, that I ended up with. And again, it's not gee whiz, it's not anything. You notice there's 2 pages. So this is it. Let me cut this down. There you go. All right, so this is what it looks like. All right, notice there's coloring on here. There's coloring on here. I forgot to change this. This just made the class active. All right, when I go over to here, notice how the active changes. See that? All right, this literally was just not many, but a few lines of code. All right, and there's 3 different slides in it. I just grabbed 3 slides. They were just from some free. Well, I didn't load all 3 of them in. I only loaded in 2 of them. All right, so that one's missing. All right, and the home page is what you already saw. All right, and the about page is the slideshow, and then there's a contact. It's not a page. Anybody know what that's called? I know it's a form. Do you know what kind of form it is? Yeah, but it's modal. I can't do anything until I do something with the form. Okay, meaning it's modal. It has control right now. Now, I don't have to even put anything in. I can just close it. I can submit, because I didn't put anything in there as far as checks. But it was just to show you how, if you want to do so, you can go in and you can add this stuff. And I went through this tutorial. I learned a lot. And a lot of it was I would just copy in their stuff, or I'd grab their code and start changing it to see what would happen. All right? I would strongly suggest, if you say, well, I'd like to learn that stuff, that's a good way of doing it. Then I went back, and I know I showed you this last semester. I have no idea where this is going to be right now. But I went back and I redid this site using that Mobirise. All right? And I tried to make it look as much like this as I possibly could. So let me think once. I just wanted to make sure I showed you that. Okay, I think it's in here. No, it's not in there. No, it's the wrong one, that's why. There it is. So you can tell me how you think I did. Okay? I don't have the images there. They came down here. But this is what comes up. Then I've got this. I didn't work with the buttons on here, but I did some work with the buttons here. I added that. And this has got all 3 of them, so you can see actually all 3 of the slides. So that's the leaf. That's the one that's missing on the other one. All right? And then the contact form. But this was all done with absolutely, I had to write 0 lines of code. All right? And notice I could jump back up. I can jump to the slideshow. I can jump down to the contact, etc. This is the kind of thing that, for lack of better words, is going to wow people when they look at your portfolio. I don't mean that you have to do Mobilize. I don't mean that you know, if you say, I don't even want to do Bootstrap, then you better be able to add responsiveness into your own pages. You know how to do that. We didn't spend a lot of time on it, but we talked a little bit about media queries. If you want to learn more about media queries, how to make stuff responsive, go out to the Bootstrap site. They've got charts in there that say where things break in a number of pixels. All right. The other thing too, and again, you may or may not care about this, but I'm in some ways changing the way that I'm teaching the people, the first year people that are coming in this year. For instance, when at all possible, we're never going to use pixels. Why? Because pixels are a fixed amount. All right. What people don't realize, don't use pixels, use ems, EMs, and because they'll expand and contract, they will. But guess what? 1 em equals 16 pixels. So all you have to do is just do the division or whatever. Okay. So if I want something to be 48 pixels, I just say it's 3 ems. That's it. All right. And if I don't use that, I'm going to use percentages, because pixels are fixed, and when you use percentages and you use ems, they're not. That's the kind of thing potential employers are looking for, because people who do it the old way, they already have a lot of those people. They're looking for people who are doing things a new way, that they're thinking mobile from the get-go, that kind of an idea. All right. So let me show you. I try to remember where all this stuff is. Show you the other thing that I did this summer. Like I said, part of it this summer, Charles would come in and he goes, "You bored?" And I wanted to always say, "Hell yes," but I just said, "No, I'm fine." Okay. Let's.
You here all summer?
Yep.
In your class?
I was here all summer. Okay, so I created. Let's see. I started to work with my my future son-in-law is trying to get me into hockey. Okay, so I started to go in and do some stuff with the St. Louis Blues. All right. Sometimes some of these are pretty well done. Some of them I just threw them up there in a day or two. Then I went back and I took basically the same thing, and I bootstrapped it. And then I came back and I mobilized it. That's kind of when I started. This was before I did the work for the students. I just did this on my own. All right, so you can see all the stuff that's in there. All right, this I just threw in. But so you can see the stuff that's in there. Mobilize is just a way to basically do Bootstrap without having to write any code. All right, that's a generalization, but that pretty much is the way it is. I was hoping to be able to show you. I'm trying to remember where I put all this stuff. I moved so much stuff around in the last few weeks, and some of it I made copies of, and some of it might be on a flash drive at home. I don't know. Manage, lookup, etc. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll show it to you this way. What I was going to do. I may have mentioned this the other day. I may not have. I don't remember anymore. But there is I created this playlist. There's 19 videos on it that show you how to create this simple BMI program. But what I wanted to quickly just show you in here, and I'll go down to the second iteration. This is it in ASP.NET. But what I want to show you is, if we take a quick look at it, you don't have to hear me, but that stuff shouldn't look all that unfamiliar to you. And I know it's hard enough to read, but the point is, it's just C#. All right. But what we get added in here, see if I can find one of these, is when we run it, it's going to look like it did like a form. It'll look at least somewhat like a form, but basically we are running it through an internal website. There is a website built into ASP.NET. All right, you're using your own machine as both a client and a server. Does that make sense? All right. I used to teach people PHP, and we used another product that would do that. So this is what it looks like. Not real much, all right? But when you look at it, like I said, it doesn't look like that much. There's I put it in the About page. There's a BMI program. There's the height that you put in. There's the weight that you put in, and it'll show you the BMI. When you click Calculate, if there's nothing in either one of these, you'll get error messages over here. Looks very similar to the stuff that we looked at before. All right, and there's a reason for that, all right? Because there's so much stuff that is just so similar between different programming languages. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is as soon as you come in here, we're going to go over chapter 1, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up what the author put. There's the error messages right there, all right? They're basically in red there. I know they're hard to see, but that'll be erased by tomorrow, all right? They're called validators, and I'll show you how to put those in. All right. The language itself, the stuff that you have to do isn't hard, but what I kind of like about this class is it's sort of a combination of the first two classes you've taken. Because what you're doing in the first semester, whether you realize it or not, everything you did in the first semester, everything was on the client side. Everything you did. You never interacted with the server. You didn't. Everything you did was on the client. Last semester, you didn't do anything client or server. You just built applications. That was what the whole class was about. Now you're building applications that have to communicate with both the client and the server. And ASP.NET is the server, basically. All right? And I talked with Evan about this, and he thinks that we are going to be able to, whatever we create, we will be able to deploy it to the Rankin server. Now that's pretty damn cool, because if you're out looking for a job, you don't know right now, if somebody says, well, hell, maybe you'll take this class and say, hell, the last thing I want to do is be an ASP.NET programmer. But you know what, if you interview and they say, you know what, Brady, we're offering $70,000 to start, now it doesn't maybe look that bad. And don't think that stuff doesn't happen. Charles was telling me that they got a couple people that were hired over the summer, and they started over $60,000. All right, that was their first job, and one of them was like 21. And he's got a girlfriend, and I just told Charles, not for long. If you're going to hear what kind of money he's making, she'll be his wife pretty quick. If that's sexist, I'm sorry, but that's probably the way that it'll work. All right. So this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing. So in chapter 1. What the author has you do is you bring up this program, and I'll bring it up. You can bring it up too if you want to. You don't have to, but I'll bring it up. And it's called a future value program. You may or may not have heard of it. Muroc loves to do this. So what it says, for example, if I invest $10,000 for 10 years and I've got an interest rate of 3%, how much money will I have at the end of that 10 years? Make sense? And it's a simple interface, and it's going to ask you how much money do you want to invest, et cetera, et cetera. There's a drop down and there's a couple text boxes. You could create the interface in a matter of minutes. All right, so we're going to do that. And then we're going to look at it and say, okay, we're going to go and add a bunch of stuff to it. Now, when you look in here, I know this is let me just stop it. That probably does, I know it's hard to read, but there's a table, right? You know how to create tables. So this is going to combine C# with HTML. And when you do this, there's two kinds of files that you're going to be using in here. You may or may not remember, but if I said, hey, Brady, when you created C# files, what was the extension on the end of your file? Dot what? Okay? And he's like, damn, I wish you wouldn't have called on me. It's .cs. All right? But now what you're going to have is if I create a file that's called BMI, I'm going to have two files. One that's going to be called bmi.aspx. That's this stuff. Then you're going to have another one that's going to call bmi.aspx.cs. That's the C# that makes this work. You've got your choice in ASP.NET. You could put it all in the same file. There's a word for that, and it's stupid. We're not going to ever do that. I don't care what the author says. We're never going to do that. There's just, all you have to do is click a button when you start it that says put it in its own file. That's it. That's the way you should do it. And you get 2 files. The one, the .cs, is called the code behind file. All right, that's typically the name that people give to it. So you're already going to see this. So we'll do that. That won't take the whole period. Then in chapter 2, we build that from scratch. And we're going to do that as a class. All right, that's what we're going to do. Then in chapter 3, chapter 3 will almost sound like a review to you, because chapter 3 is on 3 things: HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. So much of the stuff that's in there, I'm taking for granted, that you'll have read the chapters. Well, I don't have time to, then don't read the chapters. All right, but if you don't understand the stuff, that isn't my problem. I don't mean to be a jerk, but I don't know any other way to say it. I have done lectures. There's already about 100 of them out there. Just so you know, on the YouTube channel, I've gone through every chapter in the book, even ones we're not covering. I went through all 25 chapters, and there's about 40 lectures. Some of them I did 3 or 4 lectures on a chapter if they were complex enough. All right, but there's stuff out there already. What I'd like to do is, especially if we do end up doing this project, is taking the number of assignments you have and the number of tests you have and keeping them at a bare minimum, so we have time to concentrate on this. All right, but that said, if we do that, and I'm not going to put a percentage, but whatever the percentage would be if we work on a project, I'd be expecting that you'd be busting your butts to get as much of it done as you can. And even with that, when I was talking about grading, if she would agree to come in here every Friday, she believe me, she remembered names. I was pretty impressed that she walked around and, I think I said Tiffany, because when you said something, I think that's what, but I don't even know. I told Amin, she thinks his name is It's Amin. It's Amin. I'm not picking on you. I just thought it was funny. That's all. But I might even let her say, well, if you had to grade these people, how would you do it? Because if they're the people who are going to be using your product, she should have some input. She already likes you. Don't worry about it. But she likes you. No, I don't. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean. Well, half your grade's going to be on what she says. No, maybe even 5%. Oh, she already likes you. Look how she spells your name. That's Ethan with love. All right. I think that's enough stuff. So if you get the chance before tomorrow, at least, I'm going to tell you right now, at least page through chapter 1. All right. If you get that done, then page through chapter 2. All right. Again, there are YouTube lectures out there if you're interested. If you're not, that's fine. But, it's a way for you to get started, because I'm going to expect, and come prepared with questions when we do this. If something doesn't make sense, you have to ask. And I think that was what scared her when she kept saying, are there questions? She just wanted to make sure that people, were at least somewhat comprehending. All right? I think that's what got her more than anything else, so. All right, it's 4:13. What do we meet till 4:25? So 4:25, right? All right. So that means in 7 minutes, Ethan can start standing by the door. Okay.
So just look over chapter 1.
Yes. That's what I want. Okay, Brady's left. Just so you all see this, this is what I should have showed you. Okay, if I go out to YouTube, not my stuff, but if I go out to youtube.com, then I put in Bootstrap Bay, Bootstrap 3 tutorial. There's their tutorials. That's what I ended up using. All right. Now, you might look at that and go, wow, you just totally ripped them off. Some of it I did. I'm not going to lie to you. But I tried to put my own content in there. I try to protect myself in case anybody ever look at these videos and say, all he did was rip off my stuff. I'm suing his butt.
There's only so much you can do, though, to be fair. I mean, Well, there's a lot lot you can do, but I mean, there's only so much you can do to make it look different.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
right. I mean, it's like if I were to give,
People complain about
if I were, you know, if I, this project that we may or may not be working on, if I had you each do it, there'd be probably similarities in what everybody would come up with.
But I mean, just because of like for usability, you put
Yeah.
things in the same kind of places. You know, you want
Yeah.
them in the same area.
And I'm looking at it that, I mean, on this, if the person didn't want somebody to do that, they shouldn't have put it out there and they shouldn't have made it free.
That's true.
I take these Udemy classes, and I don't know if I've ever told you guys about this, but I take a lot of classes from this guy. His name is, I should go out to YouTube for it. He's from Boston. His name is Brad Traversy.
I've seen that. Yeah.
And he's got his own channel, and you know, he's got his own site. He's got literally, if I look right here, 464 results. Most of his stuff is free. I do take some of his stuff on Udemy that's paid, but he's so good. But like I said, the accent gets to you after a while.
So is it mandatory for you to be here all summer?
I get 3 weeks off.
Well, that kind of stinks with not having class, though.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I told you guys this, but in all seriousness, I took a $20,000 pay cut to come here, and I'm working 49 weeks a year, as opposed to I used to not work during the summer. That's why my wife told me, you're not just an idiot, you're an asshole and an idiot.
She moved out here yet?
No, the house is still on the market. The market there is not as good as it is here. And the agent just told us she wants us to drop the price, and that did nothing but infuriate my wife.
Sorry.
No? And it's funny, I tell people how tough I had it at the school I used to be at, and the person who took over my job quit because they said it was way too much and they were giving them no
So you
help.
work more, but you have, it's not as hard as where you
No, it's not. Sorry, I'm only. If I was still at Blackhawk, I'd have 9 classes a semester,
So you'd rather almost work.
and I'm working 2 classes now. Plus, I'm getting. And I don't mind telling you this. I'm getting close to. I was at Blackhawk for almost 25 years. I'm getting almost $60,000 a year through a pension through them. So I'm actually making more money than I was making before. So that's why it works. And all my wife cared about as far as that was that I signed it up that I'm getting a little less, but if I die, she still gets paid as long as she lives. Do you ever hear that joke? And you might think it's a really sick joke. Why do men die before women? Because they can. Okay.